Okay, we're going to be starting the meeting here shortly.
You're up.
Everyone can take their seats, please.
Push the button.
Okay. We started the meeting officially at 12:30, but we recessed it to 1, and it's a little after that now, so I will reconvene the annual town meeting of the town of Weathersfield. First, before we get started with the articles, excuse me? Can't hear? So I have to talk, if I talk while you're doing it, you can hear it then? Yeah, this thing, the mic won't stay up quite high enough, so.
Try that.
I don't know. We'll try it. Okay. Okay. Before we start on the articles, we have several things we'd like to take care of here. The first is the Weathersfield Service Award. So if everyone would turn to page 4 in the town report, I'd like to read this tribute to Ginger Wimberg. There are not many events in our community that Ginger hasn't had a hand in. You usually see her in the background addressing details or starting a conversation about her past that goes all the way to Pennsylvania and then New Jersey. Family and community have been centered to Ginger, and she brought that spirit up to Weathersfield with her husband, Jim, over 40 years ago. Ginger and Jim, along with sons Chet and Christian and daughter Elizabeth, arrived from New Jersey in 1979. She became a teacher at the Weathersfield School. She set high work standards for her students' work and behavior, but was constantly there with patience and support. She provided an especially welcoming and comfortable classroom setting. She taught her students the value of being well organized and meeting deadlines. It was her 4th grade classes that she became involved with Weathersfield's past history. Town historian Edith Hunter would come into her classes to share exciting tales about the land, people, and events that have made this town so exceptional. Highlights of the unit would be a bus tour around the town with numerous stops along the way. You can also find her serving as MC for the school spelling and geography bees. Ginger's actions give new meaning to the word neighbor. New folks who live within a mile or so of her home often receive one of her famous baked goods and a warm welcome. When her garden produce is ready, countless acquaintances benefit. Her neighborhood extends throughout the town of Weathersfield. Over the years, she's contributed her many skills and passions to various organizations. Her love of the town and its history made her strong presence in the Weathersfield Historical Society a natural, and she is now the very busy president of the society. She volunteers her time during the summer months at the Dan Foster House, where as a docent, visitors are given a lively, informative tour. Ginger will direct her to the appropriate person if they're in search of background information about a particular topic or family history. She also has a passion for reading. She keeps a log of books that she's read and participates in a local book club. She extends this passion through her devotion to the Weathersfield Proctor Library. She serves as MC for the annual library's Town Trivia Challenge, an important fundraiser. Here, various boards and committees compete by answering questions. She spends countless hours working on coming up with these. You'll always find her working on the summer evening event and the book, bake, and yard sale. Ginger is always present at town meetings and will attend board and committee meetings when a particular topic is of interest. She's not afraid of expressing her opinion without any subject or concern, but does so in a manner that is exemplary. Her everyday kindnesses and generosity to those in need are also noteworthy, and quarts of homemade soup are likely to appear at your door if you're a friend down with the flu. Ginger, we salute you. If you come up front, please.
I'm going to give you this plaque. And when you walked with me in the hallway and you would give me a hard time, now I can give you this plaque. Congratulations. And we're all so grateful to call you our friend.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Ginger. At this point, we have several legislators here. I'd like to hear from them, if you're okay here, I'd like to hear from each one of them briefly, so they can go on their way. They have many other towns they expect to visit too. So, but first of all, we'll start with our local representative, Anne Marie Christensen.
Thank you. A lot of you heard, if you were here for the school meeting, I gave sort of an abbreviated portion and also what was pertinent to the school. So there may be some redundancy if you heard it before. But I'm on the House Healthcare Committee, which I really love. We spend at least 20% of our income on healthcare. What we're finding that some of the things that we put into effect are very good. What is not are people can't afford healthcare. They can't afford their high premiums, as we saw with the school board, a major increase there on premiums, or else people will have plans with high deductibles, and therefore it's out of pocket money when they first go to the doctor, so they're not going to the doctor. We've looked into it all this session. It's a knotty problem that we've got to chip away at, but we're working on it. The other thing is our rural hospitals. Our rural hospitals, they're kind of in trouble. There's about 6 out of 9 that are in trouble. None like Springfield Hospital, which is a critical access hospital, and it's in bankruptcy. This Springfield Hospital will not go away. It's a priority of the state. It will still remain. However, as it emerges from bankruptcy, they are talking with Dartmouth, Mount Scottney, and Valley Regional in Claremont, maybe to try to get sort of an alliance together for this part of the area. But that's still being worked out, so I just wanted you to know that. Springfield Hospital will not go away. There's no plans to close the clinics. And it's a high priority of the state, so working on that one too. The healthcare workforce issue is a major concern. We're going to be short 5,000 nurses by April in all our hospitals, 27 primary care physicians we're short. So I've been leading that task force on workforce, and we're going to be putting a bill in to try to fix that. Put more nurses in the pipeline, probably with some one-time money for scholarships. Same with residency, medical students at UVM, and just to flood the pipeline right now and get everybody in the system, because once you're in the system, the hospital usually pays for you to get your bachelor's degree or further education in nursing. We're concentrating on licensed practical nurses, which is the lifeblood of our nursing homes. They're so short. One is talking about closing in the northern part of the state because they can't find workers. And then nurses with an associate's degree who are qualified at the end of that program to take the national RN exam. And once they do that, they get in the hospital pay for them to get their bachelor's. So that's the way that bill that I'm leading looks like. Other things in the legislature, I'm very disappointed that the paid family leave, we failed to override the governor's veto of that bill by 1 vote. I'm sure we'll see that again. We'll keep on trying. But it's not only important for young people and new parents. The demographics of the state are all growing older, and to have someone take off from their job when a crisis comes in a home, it'd be much better to have family members be able to step up. But some of them have such low-paying jobs and no paid family leave, they can't afford to leave their jobs and take care and the prices just escalate. We did override the minimum wage, but only for 2 years. I would have rather seen the paid family leave than the minimum wage, but there are many people living in poverty working 2 or 3 jobs, and they deserve a boost. We did Act 250 reform. We've been really busy. We did Act 250 reform, which was much needed after 50 years. It's been in effect for 50 years. And there was a back and forth on the district commissions. They wanted to get rid of the local commissions. That was put back in the bill because a lot of people were against it. However, that portion is the stuff that drives the cost and time to get a permit. So that'll still be working out. But they did a lot for the wildlife, continuous wildlife corridors. They did a lot for the environment. They have just housing standards. When you build, you have to have some housing standards so that you don't, you're not losing heat and stuff like that, because they're tight houses when you do build them. The other thing is, we passed the Global Warming Solutions Act. No, there's no carbon tax in that. But what it is we really don't have a roadmap to go forward. We're one of the states that said we would like to stay, even though the president got out of the Climate Solutions Act, we're going to keep those standards, but we don't have a roadmap for getting there. There's a lot of discussion about the carbon tax the last 2 years. People are against it, people are for it. This act will actually set up a committee appointed by the governor to come up with a roadmap for action. And then that's what we're going to follow to reduce emissions and greenhouse gases. One last thing, the governor of the coronavirus, if you heard this, I talked to it about the school. The governor is setting up plans for, not to be overreactive, but not to have anything in place. Setting something in place in case it does turn into a pandemic. And I grew up with stories from my grandmother on the 1918 flu, which was something we've never experienced. I've never experienced in my lifetime. But they are setting up plans for large group meetings, schools closing, people working from home, telehealth. They're working on that, just to at least have that plan if something does happen. And as I told the school, there's nothing to do right now except wash your hands and don't travel to countries where it's widespread. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone has any questions, many people know where my telephone number is. They also know my email. You can go to the legislature, and my email and all that information's on there. And I love that Weathersfield has not been shy in sending me emails, which I answer. So there you go.
Okay, we're very fortunate at this time, to have all 3 of our state senators here. So I would like to have each one come up and give some brief remarks. Alice and Clarkson, if we can start with you.
Okay, we'll go alphabetically.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Allison Clarkson, and along with Dick and Alice, we have the honor of serving you in the Senate. And thank you so much. I think on the whole, we love our work. It's stimulating, it's very moving, and it is always a challenge. It's part of what keeps us all engaged with it. I don't know why I have this, because I can't read it without my glasses, and I can't put my glasses on right now. I love town meeting. I love this opportunity to remind ourselves that we are all working as partners together to improve the lives of Vermonters. And so it's wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for giving us the time. I will be very brief. I'm reminded, we treasure our direct democracy represented here at our town meetings and in our village meetings. And we were honored for that. In the U.S. News and World Report, you may have read that Vermont has been named the 5th best state in the country to live in. Weighted heavily towards our health care and our education and our quality of life. So we should, you know, as we tackle the challenges locally and statewide, we should also remember what an amazing place it is to live here, and town meeting reminds us of that every year. And so it is. I'm thrilled to be here to remind us of that. I serve you I'm the Vice Chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs, and in the afternoon I serve on Senate Government Operations. And the Senate has done a lot. We've worked together to override that veto on minimum wage, and I would just remind us that while it's great that we've done that, too many of our families still live in poverty, living on that minimum wage. A livable wage in this county for a one-bedroom apartment is $19 an hour. So while it's great, we are all needing to earn more, and Vermont has a challenge in that regard because we underpay across the boards compared to our neighbors. We underpay 18 to 20%. So our increase in the minimum wage is a beginning of what needs to really move forward. In Senate Economic Development, we're working a lot on incenting things, incenting more housing. We desperately need more housing. We're going to hope to double the apprenticeships in this state. We have terrific apprenticeship and career and technical education opportunities. We're looking to double those in the next 3 years. We're relaxing, we're really focusing on incenting developing in our downtown and village centers. And we have relaxed the Act 250 regulations, trying to get rid of duplicative permitting, and we are working hard on that, and we now really need to figure out the funding source for how do we help incent housing. One of the big things I'm wanting to work on, and I have a bill in the Senate that we are working on, is reducing student debt. One of the greatest barriers to attracting young people to come back or to stay in this state is their crippling student debt. And we are very lucky, actually, in the state to have the Center on Rural Innovation right in Heartland that Matt Dunn founded. And they are a great source of information for us, both for you at a local level and for us at the state level. And they are our partners on this, and we're looking at trying to reduce student debt in 4 major areas. And when that bill is finished, we will have it out to you, but we're working hard on that. In the Senate, in government operations, we're working actually on a crisis in emergency medical services, which we, as many of you know, we're having a really hard time finding volunteers, getting them trained and educated. And so we're working on improving that. We're going to be piloting a regional public safety opportunity for regional public safety services. And we're looking to improve and pass uniform licensing so that more people who are licensed in other jurisdictions can come far more easily without as many barriers to work here in Vermont. Especially the military. We're looking primarily at nurses because we have such a shortage in the medical area. But in those who have credentials in the military, we are wanting to reduce the barriers and make it easier for them to work in Vermont. We've just passed a pretty impressive criminal justice reform measure, which I'm going to let Alice speak to you about. And so I'm going to pass it on to whoever wants to be next. So thank you for the opportunity to work and in the State House, because it's an honor and always stimulating.
Hi, I'm Dick McCormick. I'm one of your 3 state senators. I serve, in the Senate, we serve on 2 committees, a morning committee and an afternoon committee. In the mornings, I'm on health and welfare, and then on the afternoons, appropriations, which means my job is to spend other people's money, which, believe me, we take seriously as a responsibility. It haunts me at times. Can I face people having voted for this or that appropriation? Health and welfare. Allison just mentioned the nursing shortage. Vermont is down 5,000 nurses, fewer than what we really need. And we're off, this week we are not in session. It's not a paid vacation, we're not getting paid either. We take this week off. I'll be back, we'll all be back the week after this, and I will be reporting in the Senate on Tuesday a bill to put Vermont into the Interstate Nursing Compact, which is a compact among 35 states, 35 if Vermont joins. in which a nurse from one state can operate in another state on his or her license from the home state, which should make it much easier to get nurses in here. What we call travelers, who are nurses who work away from their own homes. And it'll also make it easier for Vermont nurses who, for one reason or another, want to work in another state. Unfortunately, neither New York nor Massachusetts is in that compact. It would be much more beneficial to us if they were. But our neighbors to the east are. And because Dartmouth-Hitchcock, for example, is a major healthcare provider for Vermonters, and as you know, living in Weathersfield, the Connecticut Valley really is a bi-state community. So this will make that work better. The opioid thing doesn't go away. That is an ongoing and continuing problem. And the other thing is, and it's already been mentioned, the horrible pricing of pharmaceuticals and healthcare. I'm personally of the opinion that nothing will work except having the United States join the rest of the civilized world and have healthcare be a right of citizenship and that it be paid for collectively through taxes. I know some people think that's quote unquote too far left, it's extreme. It's the way it's done. The United States is the outlier. The way the world, the industrialized democratic world does it, is that healthcare is a right, a public right, and a public responsibility. In the Appropriations Committee, we divvy up the budget among the committee members. The entire committee is responsible for the entire budget, but then individual committee members are responsible for particular parts of the budget. That's how I'm spending this so-called week off, is I'm going up to Montpelier and meeting with various bureaucrats and interviewing them about their parts of the budget. The budget comes originally as a suggested budget from the governor's office, goes to the House. Constitutionally, all money bills begin in the House, and then it comes to the Senate, but we don't wait for the House bill. We try to get a jump on the work. This is a town meeting, you have an agenda, you have town business, and trying to be brief means that I'm going to leave a lot of things unsaid. I will hang around in the hall after I'm done. And if anyone would like to talk to me, I'll hang around for a while. And also, as Anne-Marie mentioned, our phone numbers are in the book, and there's a standard email formula, first initial, last name, the legislature, at LEG for legislature, e.vt.us. In my case, it's R for Richard. No one has called me Richard since my grandfather died, but that's my proper name. And even I say McCormick, it's actually McCormack. So RMCCORMACK at ledge.state.vit.us. Okay, I'll hand it off to Alice.
Same one.
Oh,
Put it there.
once we have to read my paper.
Yeah, just let me.
Oh, great. Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Alice Nitka from over in Ludlow, and this might not work. Anyway, I'm serving in the two committees in the Senate, which we do appropriations and judiciary. Judiciary deals with the courts, corrections, penalties, and appropriations does the budget. The budget this year, the overall budget this year is, and this is what came from the governor, $8.1 billion. And the general fund budget, which is included within that, which is state money, is $1.4 billion. That's enough. Oh, I see somebody over there. Anyway, we plan to have a balanced budget this year, as we have had every year. It's not easy to do that with all the requests for spending and the needs and the costs of everything these days. The budget covers everything from transportation, airports, the National Guard, the money that comes to the towns, healthcare things, just about everything imaginable, the money that's going to some of the hospitals. So anyway, everything is in there, fish hatcheries, childcare, everything. Anyway, the Army Guard, by the way, is looking for, as everybody around is looking for new employees and just employees to fill all of the jobs that we have waiting. The Army Guard is looking for 200 recruits, and the Air Guard is looking for 300 recruits. We did something last year in the budget, which are continuing this year, which is to give scholarship money, make that available as a recruiting tool. It has been available in other states, and in those states, they have been able to recruit people from Vermont to join their guards because we didn't offer that scholarship. So this is a tool to have an incentive for people here to join our guard, which we certainly hope they will. There's always been a educational benefit for those persons joining the guard, but it's a benefit that you will get paid. If you complete the work, then you will have that money that you spend on that forgiven. So let's see. In the Judiciary Committee, we've been working on a lot of criminal issues because it has corrections in there. And something that has come up, we're working on a lot of expungements, which are to have your certain records expunged so that you might be able to get a certain job. In other words, we just had somebody in, a woman 56 years old, who had an offense when she was 22. She was married, had 2 young children. Her brother had stolen some goods and planted them at her house. He was living with her. She didn't know about it, but she lied and said, she said they weren't. She said in the end, I think, that she wouldn't rat on him. So she anyway took this rap herself. And in those days, it was different that many years ago as to what you get for a sentence. Today, you'd get sent to the diversion program, and something would be worked out where you did community service, paid a fine. Anyway, she got 45 days in jail, and she had 2 children, 2 and 4. And it's a felony. It has stayed on her record ever since. She works in a small position at a school and has not dared to leave that job because she's worried if she went to another job, when they saw her felony, she couldn't get it. She actually has now been trained as a teacher by going to school, but can't get a job as a teacher because she has that felony. So this expungement would remove that from her record. It's been that many years ago. We also have had a lot of people come in who have some minor marijuana convictions from long ago. And some of those are frequently this is a class of women who, grandmother wanted to go on a field trip with her child on the school bus. She wasn't allowed to do it because she had that on her record. So anyway, we're working on that. There's many of these people who are employed in jobs that could move up, but because of their records, they can't. There also are a few scary things going on in that realm also. There's a bill, Life Without Parole, which for many people, it would mean when you got your sentence, you would not be able to be sentenced to life without parole. This bill has certainly generated a lot of interest. There are certain crimes that wouldn't come under it, but some very serious ones would. And one of the different kinds of murders that happen, but a few of those would also be there. So, Vermont does not have a death penalty, and so many people say, well, that's fine, but someone should be able to go to jail for life. So that's a very controversial bill. It is coming out at some point. Let's see. Well, anyway, there's a lot of things going on. I'm not doing well with this microphone.
Sorry.
But it's all right. I'm almost done. So anyway, I'll be done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm sure the senators will be in the hallway for a while anyway to ask any questions if you have them. So please do, as well as Anne Marie at any time. Okay, we're almost ready to move on to the warning, but I would like to have the board members and staff introduce themselves. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge our new town manager. Brandon Gulnick has been here just about a month now, Brandon, right?
Yes.
So he's obviously a little bit wet behind the ears still, but he's learning fast, and he's got some good guys to learn from, as well as very capable staff that's helping him through it. So, Brandon, I don't know if you wanted to say a couple of things or just leave it at that.
I just want to say that I'm happy to be here. I've had the opportunity to, I just want to say that I'm very happy to be here in Weathersfield, Vermont, and I want to thank the search committee and the select board for giving me the opportunity to serve for the residents in Weathersfield. I've had the ability to meet many of you to date and get a fine understanding of what makes Weathersfield so special. And I just want to let everybody know that if you have any questions or you want to set up a meeting and chat, my door is always open and my phone is as well. So I look forward to working as your town manager.
Okay, I'll start here with Dave, if you want to introduce yourselves.
My name's Dave Fuller.
John Harrison.
Michael Todd.
Kelly Murphy.
Dan Boyer.
I'm Darlene Kelly, the Finance Director.
Okay, is there anybody I missed here? Well, Ray Stapleton, of course. Yeah, Ray's up back. Good. Okay, let's move on to the articles. And first of all, I got to read the article warning. Okay, the legal voters of the town of Weathersfield, Vermont are hereby... Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, one more thing. Dave reminds me. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. We have a couple of, retiring board members up here. Dan Boyer and Kelly Murphy, can you come up here for a second?
See, this is that thing.
We have these plaques that have been made. They're beautiful and they're hand carved, made out of wood. And for the years of for Kelly and Dan for serving the town when you didn't have to. I know all about that kind of feeling. And we've also got gift certificates from each. We know you do a lot of traveling, so thank you so much for your service to the town. We've got one more, Peter, and this is probably a little bit of a surprise for you. That's fine. Our moderator has chosen not to run again. And Peter has served the town and the school for a number of years, and I can't remember, and so I've got a gift for you as well. Guess what?
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
That's a good point. John just brought that up. No one has filed to be moderator, so if anybody's interested, perhaps on Tuesday, if somebody'd like to seek it as a write-in, more than happy. I know the same thing has happened with the school, but we do need to fill that position. So if somebody's thinking about that, pass it along, and maybe it can gain momentum on social media. I don't know. Thanks.
That's an easy job. It's only one day a year, maybe.
And it pays well.
Yeah, it pays well, too, yeah. Okay, have I forgotten anything else here before we finally dig into it? The legal voters of the town of Weathersfield, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Weathersfield School, 135 Schoolhouse Road in Ascutney, in the town of Weathersfield, Vermont, on Saturday, the 29th of February, 2020, at 12:30 p.m. to act on the following articles. Article 1. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield accept the reports of the town's officers for the period from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved. John Wayne.
And second by Tim Oscar, right? Yes. Okay. Are there any questions about the reports in the town report before we go to a vote? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to accept the reports of the town officers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, the motion carries. Article 2, shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield, in accordance with 17 BSA 2664 and 22 BSA 142, authorize the Proctor Library trustees to expend such grant monies, gifts, or bequests which may be received by the Proctor Library in accordance with the terms of said grants, gifts, or bequests. Do I hear a motion to approve that?
I vote.
Matt Keniston, and second by,
Diane Austin.
I'm sorry, what your name?
Diane Austin.
Diana, okay. Thank you. Is there any discussion on that, on Article 2? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the article to authorize the Proctor Library trustees to spend money, basically, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion is approved. Article 3, shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield authorize the select board to borrow money, if necessary, to pay current expenses in anticipation of taxes in accordance with the provisions of Title 24, Section 1786 of the Vermont statutes annotated. Do I hear a motion? Tim Austin. And second by Ginger Winberg. Okay, any questions on Article 3? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Article 4, without objection, I'm going to move Article 4 to the end, after we finish the discussion of the articles. I want to make sure that we have adequate time to discuss the articles that are being voted on. Okay, voting by Australian ballot will be conducted in Martin Memorial Hall at 5259 US Route 5 in Ascutney on Tuesday, the 3rd day of March 2020. The polls will open at 10 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. on that date to act on the following articles. Article 5, to elect all town officers as required by law. We have a moderator, select board 3 years, select board 2 years, a lister, trustee of public funds, town agent, town grand juror, cemetery commissioner, and a library trustee. Any questions on that? There are several of those that are open that no one has taken out papers for, so if anyone is interested at the last minute, a write-in campaign could well be successful if you try it. Any questions? Okay, if not, as we said, the polls will be open on Tuesday to vote on those officers. Moving down to Article 6. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve the expenditure of $1,414,851 for the support and operation of the town's general fund? $1,080,411 shall be raised by property taxation, allowing the select board to set the appropriate tax rate. Do I hear? No, we don't need a motion. So anyway, so we're open to the floor for discussion, and
Brandon will present.
Brandon will present it as a presentation here on
I'm going to stand up over there.
Article 6.
You can take this if you want to take this one, probably take the cord with you. Whatever you want to do. Go ahead. Go to the podium.
Okay.
You want to be here?
Good afternoon again. Hello. So what this slide demonstrates is that the amount of expenditures that constitute the core administrative and operational expenses in the town. And as you can see in this, I can pull it right up. As you can see in this slide, the budget has remained stable over the past 5 years with little fluctuation. Expenditures peaked in fiscal year 19 to $1,479,112 and have decreased since last year by $17,996. Tax revenue was at a peak in fiscal year 20, but has since decreased by $3,098 in our proposed budget before you today. Some of the big ticket items that contributed to a decrease in a proposed general budget include the computer and equipment and software has decreased by 55%. We changed the land use position back down to part-time, which decreased by 38% or $19,639. A police cruiser has been paid off. Building maintenance at the library has decreased by 50%. And the fire departments this year are being maintained at the same level of funding as last year. This slide demonstrates Weathersfield's tax rate over the past 10 years. And as you can see, the tax rate was at the highest in FY18 at 0.6544 or $654.40 per $100,000 of property value. For example, if your property is valued at $300,000 in FY18, the general fund resulted in $1,963.20 in taxes annually. This year, I'm pleased to announce that the tax rate has decreased by 0.0109, resulting in a tax savings of $10.90 per $100,000 property valuation, which is equivalent to a $32.70 annual savings on property value, a property valued at $300,000. In fact, this is the lowest tax rate since FY 2011. Go back, yeah. So the proposed budget this year and the tax rate is actually lower than it was in fiscal year 2011. And as Mr. Fuller will say, and I quote, "The rate of spending matches the rate of growth in property values in town," which is great. Now I'm going to give it over to Darlene. She's our finance director, and she's going to explain the audit. Yes. Is that okay?
So these next few slideshows just kind of represent the health of the town through our audits. Just so I had presented these slides to the select board meeting or so ago to kind of give you an overview of what's the health of the town over the last few years. So as you can see, our net assets have grown, which means our assets, what we own versus what we owe, our liabilities have increased over the years, so that's a positive thing that we are in good shape with our net assets growing since 2015. Our reserve funds, we have been diligent about putting money away for special emergencies or special importance things in town that we feel are important to have some savings in case of emergency, or buying equipment, or items like that. So our reserve articles have passed and have increased since 2015. Long-term debt, we have paid down, we've been very good about paying down debt in the town since 2015. We actually have paid off some more since this slide, because it was through last fiscal year. We paid off the police cruiser this year, so we don't owe a lot of money on equipment and other things, so that's a positive result for the town. So this is an example of our fund balances. So fund balance is kind of like a savings or money that could be used if needed. It's not always good to draw it down to nothing, but we have, per the audit last year, they had us change some of the way we report our fund balances, and so this is what you're seeing as a result of that change in the audit. The little pink lines are some of the reserve or fund balances that were set up for the rabies fund and for, sorry, I can't read this little slide in front of me, the Conservation Commission. So that's what the pink little ones are. The purple is the unassigned fund balance, so it's not something that we have it designated for. So we have some money in different for surpluses where we've created some efficiencies in town, and it has built up that fund balance. And the green line, as you see, is the rainy day fund that you had voted on a few years back. That's pretty much fully funded at this point. So that's why you're seeing that big spike in the green, is because it was just, Ed had introduced it and it passed at town meeting, and we funded it about $100,000 that first year, and we added to it last year with some efficiencies in the town office and other departments. And highway fund balance can't be a part of the other slide. Highway has to stay in its own department by the state, by law. So that's why you see highway represented differently from the rest of the town. So the fund balance in 2017 was kind of high. They had a lot of surplus money. They've spent some of that down paving the following year. And we grew a little bit last year, again, with some efficiency and loss of personnel. It's been the big efficiencies in both the town office and highway that has caused those fund balances to rise. Excuse me. So this is, I would say, one of the areas, if anything, in town that really we need to kind of focus on in the coming year. John will talk a little bit more about this after I'm done. Solid waste, it's a moving target. It's, I think, for everyone in the state. So I don't feel like it's just our town, but it is definitely gonna be the one department, even though it's not a town tax funded department. It's kind of like a business where we can charge fees to offset those losses. This is going to be a big piece we need to focus on as a town here next fiscal year and the one after, because the markets are tanking where we can sell recyclables. A lot of regulations coming out for waste, so it's a big, you can see we've had issues in 2015 and 16 where we ran a deficit. 17, I think that was the year they may have raised punch tickets to help offset those losses. 18, you had an issue with a compactor that caused that to drop down again. And then we tried to offset that with some efficiencies last year to bring that loss back up, but it's very little. So that's going to be important, everybody, to work on that together. And again, this is just an example of the tax rate since 2011 to 2019. And the point is, you're relatively at the same tax rate that you were in 2012. And 7 years later, the town has really done a great job at finding efficiencies and really kind of keeping you in the same spot for the last 7 years. And I think that's kind of pretty impressive with the way the world is maneuvering economically. So I think that's a positive. Any questions?
Okay, questions on Article 6? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, we'll move on to Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve the expenditure of $1,241,557 for the support and operation of the town's highway fund? $946,770 shall be raised by property taxation, allowing the select board to set the appropriate tax rate. And Brandon, I believe you're going to be talking in on this?
Move to the next slide. So this slide again shows a 5-year highway fund overview since fiscal year 17. And included in this chart are the expenditures of the highway department and the amount raised by taxes in each given year. The amount raised by taxes required to run the highway department were the highest in our current fiscal year, but have decreased by $1,007 in fiscal year 21's proposed budget, whereas expenditures increased by $17,035. Move on to the next. One more. So some of the goals of this year's highway budget include to complete a paving project and building reserves for 2022 paving project, and continue to approve our pavement maintenance plan. The second is to perform pavement maintenance, crack seal and pothole repairs, re-gravel 3 miles of roadway, rent an excavator to ditch roads, bringing more segments into Act 64 compliance, replace 13 culverts, continue upgrading safety procedures and purchasing necessary equipment to meet VOSHA standards, open new phase at the Bow Pit for winter sand removal, install retaining walls at Perkins Hill. That's pending a grant approval right now. And start the process for salt shed replacement at the highway garage upon awarded grant funding. Move to the next slide. Do we have any questions for?
Any questions on our Article 7, on the highway budget? No questions? Okay, then we'll move on to Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve the expenditure of $283,336 for the support and operation of the town's solid waste management facility? These monies shall be raised by non-tax revenues. And John, I think you're up.
I get to talk about garbage. I guess you gotta do what you're good at. The first slide shows what the expenditures have been doing, but I want to jump right into how the operation works. The solid waste facility transfer station is what's called an enterprise fund. It's not supported with tax dollars other than the $50 assessment on each and every parcel. What supports the transfer station is the punch cards. That's where the money is generated. So the more you use, the more stuff you throw away, the more you pay. The best thing you can do is to use the zero sort compactor, which I'm going to use the word free. It's not free. Switch to the next slide, please. Problems with zero sort are China's not taking our garbage. It's piling up. I shouldn't say garbage, recyclables. It's piling up in various places around the country. The best thing you can do is not create it in the first place. That's easier said than done, but it should be the goal of everybody, is to reduce your waste stream entirely and not depend on just throwing everything into the zero sort. The zero sort, it costs us almost as much to get rid of a container of that as it does for the stuff you're paying $3.50 for each punch. So anybody that thinks zero sort's free, it's far from being free. And there doesn't seem to be any end in sight until the markets develop for recyclables, if they ever develop like they were. When China was taking everything under the sun, that wasn't a good thing. I mean, sending our problems overseas is not a solution. Next slide. This slide shows you some of the increases we've seen and what it costs to get rid of both the zero sort and the garbage compactor. While that slide's up, I'd just like to comment that we do have some capital expenses that are coming up fairly soon at the transfer station. One of the compactors is reaching the end of its life. The slab is starting to deteriorate, so like I said earlier, it's an enterprise fund. When expenses go up, we have to adjust the punch cards accordingly, because we can't run in the red there, otherwise the bar graphs start to get a little kooky. Next one. We do save quite a bit of money. Right now, the glass goes to Springfield and goes through a crusher, and that is actually used as a base fill by some of the highway departments. You may notice around the zero sort some rather sparkly ground glass around. So anyway, so that's one product that you'd like to think it's getting made into something, but because glass is basically, once again, sand, there really isn't any market. It's not worth sending it back to have it put into something else. One discussion that started rather late in the budget cycle was the hybrid system that we have with Reading and West Windsor, both of which can use our system. Both towns operate a little bit differently from the way Weathersfield does. There's no assessment on their property values, and that's a discussion the board is going to start up with, or continue with both West Windsor and Reading, so we can come up with something that's equitable. But on the other hand, we do depend somewhat on their revenue to operate the transfer station. Unfortunately, the other part with the transfer station is that there's not a lot of competition on getting rid of this stuff. So we're kind of tied in with Casella without too many alternatives. We can't shop around. Any questions?
It's an easy crowd.
Any questions on Article 8? Hey, John. I'm sorry, Willis, can you come up to the mic? I'm sorry. We got to have you on camera.
Be there to yell.
Hey, John, where's our, the stuff that we throw in the garbage, the junk? Where's that go? Does that go to landfill now, or where's it go?
You'd have to ask Casella definitively, but I believe it goes up to, what's the town name?
Coventry.
Coventry, to a landfill. The only landfill that's open in Vermont is in Coventry, and that's going to be filled someday.
Soon.
Any other questions? No other questions on Article 8? Okay, then we'll move on to Article 9. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve the purchase of a new 10-wheel dump truck for a total not to exceed $220,000, of which payment for such item includes $75,000 from the Highway Equipment Acquisition Reserve and up to $145,000 to be financed for a period not to exceed 7 years. And I believe Ray is going to speak to that?
Over here.
Ray is over there, okay, good. Go for it, Ray.
So the first slide, Darlene. So currently we've gotten rid of our tandem axle dump truck, which was a 10-wheeler. It was a 2003. It had no plow or sanders. It was only utilized for hauling materials. At that time, we had 7 vehicles. With this purchase, I'm hoping to get down, I want to get down to 6 vehicles, 6 trucks, and they're all going to be used year-round. They can plow, sand, everything, and haul materials. This will be a tandem axle 10-wheel dump truck that hauls 14 yards of material. It's also going to replace the 1999 single axle dump truck at this time that we use for a full-time plow route in the wintertime. That truck would be brought down to the spare status in the winter. It would be there available until the truck breaks down. Right now we have a 1996 single axle dump truck that is our spare vehicle. Hopefully in the long term we get down to the proper amount of vehicles needed to provide a service to this town, and we can get a better cycle on them so we don't need a spare vehicle sitting there that we're paying expenses on. That's a long-term goal, and it's something we're researching. It's going to take a while to figure that out. That pretty much covers the tandem axle on that part. The next slide will come up. Right now, the single axle truck carries 7 yards in the wintertime when you're plowing and sanding. We go out and plow, come back and sand. It takes usually 2 to 3 loads to do a route. With the tandem axle trucks, we have discovered they are a lot more efficient, and you're out there and you can actually sand as you plow on some hills because you still have enough weight and a plow load. The smaller trucks, if you put too much sand on, you lose track, you have no power, you can't make the hills, and if you start sanding it off, doing the roads, you lose traction and you can't finish your route. So it's kind of difficult for us at that time. So it'll be less trips, and less trips in the winter when we're hauling our winter sand. In the fall, we'll have 3 10-wheelers. These trucks will be our haulers. They will haul our gravel for the roads. They'll haul our winter sand. They'll do the bulk of the heavy lifting. The smaller trucks will do the plowing and sanding on their 2 routes. Instead of having all small trucks, we're going to mix it up. In 2003, like I said, I'm going to go off a little bit here, just for history. In 2003, it was decided that we needed to haul more materials, or we're hauling materials, to get a 10-wheel, which is a 14-yard truck. It was purchased, it didn't have a plow or a sander, so it was limited. It was a good choice, it worked. In 2012, there was further discussion, and it was decided to buy the first tandem axle dump truck with a plow and sander. John has that truck on his route over here in Scotty. It's the furthest from the shop. It proved to be very efficient. We had to do some tweaking on turnarounds and things, but that was minor. The second one was purchased in 2016, and that's on the Bowen Hill route, and that is the one with the most hills and the most travel area. So he can put on 3/4 of the load, go out and plow, and he can sand those really bad hills while he's there, and then go back and fill the gaps in on the easier travel areas later on. We're going to continue that and add a 3rd truck to this route, to these routes, and improve these efficiencies. That's our goal. The Article 9 on the 10-wheel dump truck, on the prices, Darlene, I'll flip that. Thank you. Actually, the 2003 was sold for $40,000, and that money's going back into buying this truck if it's approved, and also using $35,000 from highway reserves. So that's the recommendation from the highway department, was to replace these vehicles with one vehicle that can be used year-round and improve our efficiencies, and to use our reserves to reduce the cost. We wrote it as up to 7 years, so we have flexibility. If this is approved, the board and the town manager and I, we all sit down, find the best interest rates, find the best plan, and it might be paid off sooner, but it will not go beyond the 7 years. The same thing on the price. When you go out to get quotes, you get a ballpark. You tell them what you want for a vehicle, you get a ballpark from different vendors, and you have a window. So you set it at the highest window, and your hope is to pay less. So we aren't going to pay more than $220,000. Our hope is to pay less. All comes down to when the bids come in and then financing.
Thank you, Ray. Any further questions on Article 9, the dump truck article? I think Ray's given us a good explanation on that one, and we'll let him follow up with Article 10. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield authorize the select board to borrow funds not to exceed $240,000 for a period not to exceed 7 years for the purchase of a new road grader? Right?
That's me again. So, the next slide. This is the history of our grader. In 2007, there was a lot of discussion around purchasing a grader and how we were going to finance it. It was decided to do a 7-year lease purchase with a full 7-year warranty. So in 2014, when that grader was traded in, another slide will show you, but on the graph, you have equity in that grader that is used to purchase the new one. So there's less tax dollars you have to use to pay for the new one. It just kind of recycles the tax dollars. In 2014, we purchased our next grader. It was found that we could do it for 5 years with a 5-year warranty and have the payments actually drop and keep it under warranty. The plan was to replace it last year in 2019. It would have been at the most $160,000 for the grader we were looking for out of tax dollars after trading in the one we have. It would have been the highest rate we had for a trade-in was $275,000 of equity in that machine. That means there's $275,000 that we've already paid in taxes we do not have to repay to buy a new one. So that failed by 18 votes. So we're trying to do it again this year. And of course the prices have gone up. And it's the highest price we had was $480,000 for the grader with a 7-year warranty. And there was another one that was lower than that. It was under $420 for a 7-year warranty and service plan. Those are just rough pre-quotes for budgeting purposes. So, if it's hard to explain why it makes sense to purchase a new grader when the grader you have is good. It comes down to we already paid for this. We have money in this grader, and now the warranty is gone, and we're going to have to pay all the expenses for maintenance or for repairs. I'm sorry. This spring, the transmission went, and it was repaired. It was under warranty. It was around $20,000 it would have cost the town. I know that's not a reason. Your car goes out of warranty. You don't go out and buy a new one. This is a very expensive piece of equipment with a lot of electrical components and a lot of very expensive repairs that could pop up. For us to protect the town tax base and to use less tax dollars to provide a service for an essential piece of machinery, it makes more sense to keep rolling over that equity and having the payment. Right now, we're at a 7-year cycle. Last year would have been 5 years, and the payments would have been even lower than the last grader. Now it's going up, and we have to go spread it over 7 years, possibly up to 7 years, to make the payments work. The goal, again, we're back to getting back to that 5-year cycle where we're trading it in, we're saving more tax dollars, we're keeping it under warranty, and we're protecting ourselves from unknown costs. I've talked to several contractors in the area, and I've talked to other towns, and the older machines that don't have all the computers and all these components are easier to fix and are less expensive, and it makes sense to keep them as long as possible, but they all know they're heading down this road. There's 10 computers on this machine, and sometimes they don't talk to each other, and you have to have things reprogrammed, and without a warranty, every time they come down, that's going to cost us money, tax dollars. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to do the money craft side of it.
So first, before I explain the chart, I think it's important to know how I arrived with the information in this chart. And as Ray stated, the existing grader was purchased in 2014 for $385,000. The highest cost estimate we received this year was $480,000. The depreciation rate that I used was a modest 5.1%. It's important to note that I did not calculate this by using the straight line depreciation nor the declining balance depreciation methods. Instead, I calculated the difference between the difference in price between the cost of this machine in 2015 and the salvage value or trade-in value of the machine as shown in the estimates we received, which demonstrates, according to these estimations, that our grader depreciated at a rate of 5.1%. It's also important to note that the straight line depreciation calculation would have depreciated the grader at nearly 17% per year. And many contractors generally use a 15% depreciation rate as a rule of thumb. It can be argued that private entities oftentimes use the equipment for profit while the public sector purchases its equipment to use for public use to save tax dollars, rather than hiring a contractor and being charged a hefty hourly rate. In the same respect, the number of hours the public sector uses on these machines may vary from municipality to municipality depending on size and need for that given year. However, the amount of hours annually is usually less in the public sector, which can potentially account for a lower depreciation rate. The salvage value I based this chart on was a calculation between the amount of trade-in value estimated and the highest quote we received, which also estimated the highest trade-in value for the existing grader. Based on these facts, the chart before you was created. It demonstrates the following facts. Since 2014, when the grader was purchased, the grader lost $145,000 in value, which averages out to be about $24,000 per year. And as you know, graders provide a demanding service for our community, and it's nice to know that the annual payment subtracted by the depreciation amount equals a positive number, meaning the grader is holding its value over the years. So why is this important? Based on the graph before you, we have projected the anticipated price increase of a similar piece of equipment up until 2030. This calculation was made by calculating the difference between the cost of our existing grader in 2015 and the cost of a new grader in 2020, then dividing that number by 5, which equals $19,000 per year. If the price of a grader increases by $19,000 per year, as evidence shows in the estimates we received, the cost of a grader in 2030 will be $670,000, which is nearly a decade from now. As you know, the cost of products increases for a number of reasons, the primary reason being that the cost of living expenses increases, which leads to wage increases and so forth, increasing the price of goods sold. As you can see, in 2020, the grader is valued at $240,000, and the price of the grader is $480,000. The difference between these two numbers is $240,000, which is money required by tax revenue.
Brandon, can you walk them, just go up and walk them through and
Yep.
show what, because from a distance, it's very busy.
So basically,
Microphone,
sorry.
Peter.
So basically, in 2015, it was in 2014, the grader was purchased for $385,000. And as you can see in this chart, as the years go on, the grader depreciates in value based on the math that I just demonstrated to you. Right now in 2020, our grader is valued at $239,716, which is the amount of money that's consistent in the estimates that we received for the trade-in of our existing grader. The amount that is rising is the anticipated price increase. So the way that I calculated that before is taking the number, the amount of the grader this year and the amount of the grader in 2015, and then dividing it across those 5 years. And the difference, if you can see the yellow right there in between the two lines, is the amount of tax revenue that would need to be collected to purchase the machine over the next 10 years.
So to add to that, the gap you see in the middle, you have the top line going up, the bottom line going down. That gap in the middle is, over the years, how much money we have to raise in tax dollars to buy a new machine the longer we wait. So in a nutshell, you're better off when it's closer together to buy the grader because you're paying less in tax dollars for it. You have to borrow less money.
I'm ready for the next slide. All right, so this graph demonstrates the amount of money that will need to be raised by taxes to make up the difference between the value of the machine in any given year and the anticipated cost of the machine in any given year. And as you can see in this graph, and if these calculations are correct, each year the amount of tax needed to purchase a new grader will just continue to increase. Next year the amount is estimated to grow to $283,000 and entering into the $300,000 range the following year and so forth.
And this graph does not demonstrate any repair cost. Without a warranty, all the repair costs are added on to the cost of running the grader. And those are random. We can't even speculate what's going to break on the machine. Maintenance, we can. We go by the book. We know what we have to do every 500 hours. That's easy, but the repairs are not. This is a graph just showing two different estimates we have for this year. The first graph is they're offering $185 on trade-in, and I can't read the amount on what they're paying, but they want $412 for the machine. The second graph shows it was a $480,000 estimate, and they're going to give $240,000 for the machine. Just to give you the window of why we come up with the prices we do, at the maximum it's going to be $240,000 up to 7 years. Some questions that have come up are, if your machine's running well and you can still use it, why would you get rid of it? And that's a very good question. In the private sector, I wouldn't. I would be making an hourly rate, and that hourly rate would cover all my repairs, and I'm putting some away for future purchase of a new machine, and I'm still making a profit. When the profitability goes away, that's when you replace your machine and you get a new one, and you still charge your hourly rate. For the town of Weathersfield, we don't have an hourly rate, and all the repairs are tax dollars, and all the replacement costs are tax dollars unless you have the equity. So as the equity, again, as that shrinks, the tax need increases. So it's kind of they have a good point as a business person, but as a municipality, that factor's not there for income. We do not get an income. Everything we do costs tax dollars. So our recommendation is as follows: to allow the select board to approve financing for up to $240,000 for a lease purchase, not more than 7 years, for a new road grader for the town of Weathersfield. Thank you.
Okay, discussion, questions?
My name's Mary Winter. I just want to verify, since there's been a lot of numbers thrown at people, for the warranty, that ended last year or that ends this year?
The warranty ended in December of last year.
Okay.
They offered, just to extend on
Yep.
that, they offered a lot more money on the trade-in last year because there was a little bit of warranty left. So if we had done the deal in July or August, they could have repaired a lot of things on the machine to resell it. That option for them is gone, so that's a lot of the big decrease in value. Next year, it'll go back to the 5% depreciation instead of being so huge, but it's still be depreciating.
And on the interest rate that you're talking, what kind of range are you talking with on the finance stuff?
That would be when they do the budgeting. We don't know. a
We
year
d-
from
we don't
now
know
what
what-
the
we
rates
don't-
are gonna
we
be.
don't know what the-
Darlene could give you an estimate, ballpark.
Usually the town can borrow at 2.5% from the bank. Depends if you go to the CAT or the bank. And our bank is usually People's United who we deal with for town borrowing. Steve Heyer handles that as the treasurer, but I know last year when we, priced it to borrow for, was it Reservoir Road we just paid? What was the name?
Center Road and Reservoir
Center
Road.
It was 2.5%. So that's about what, if you borrow from the bank.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Dave?
The interest is not the problem here, it's the zeros on the end of any of these kinds of purchases. The board was split on this, and I do not support this purchase for this reason. It's important to know that this unit's paid for. A lot of us, I heard the analogy about driving around our new car and it's not our car that was paid for. Do we do that now, or do we buy another new one because it could be warranted? And it's important to remember that warranties don't cover everything. And the answer is, in today's day and age, because of that, the principal, I've heard the interest on a couple of these at 3.8, but we can borrow it cheaper from a bank to answer that question. The grader did get, this 2014 did get a brand new transmission under warranty last fall. It was expensive, but nevertheless, it's a brand new transmission. It has 5,006 hours on it. To put that in perspective, that's about a 100,000 mile car. I'm driving a 150,000 mile pickup because I don't feel like buying a $50,000 new one. The two options here are a bit different. One of them is for a 7-year, 7,000 hour warranty. The other one is a 7-year payment with a 5,000 hour warranty. So there's a difference in there. And remember now, ours is 5 years old, and we just burned up 1,000 hours in each year. So that's important to remember. You really do want to make that tailor-made to cover what you're doing if you're doing it. But the more reason why I don't want to do it is neither the payment for the dump truck, which you just heard, or the grader is in this year's budget. It's going to be allocated for the ensuing year's budget, which will total up to be $70,000 worth of payments to be made after July 1st of 2021. Now that's okay because we saw a little bit, because we saw the schedule here of our long-term debt and everything, but you've got to remember that when you fit together next year's budgets, all of a sudden these payments come up. The loader in our barn is a 2006. The backhoe is a 2009. And so in my mind, when I'm piecing together the whole fleet, I'm saying to myself, what else is going to come up for replacement? And I'm setting aside other dump trucks as well, which is going to come up. Remember, this is going to be paid for 7 years. So these $40,000 payments are going to come up every single year. We're using the grader less. Before Ray got here, we remember Wes was in charge of the highway. There are some practices that are being done where we're elevating the roads, and we're ditching better, and we're using SurePack in conjunction with gravel that are requiring less grading, not more. So that's good news. So I just want people to remember that it is part of a package that we'll have to deal with down the road budgeting when these payments come up due. So it shouldn't come as a surprise. You need to know that. Thanks.
In addition to that, on the payments, the highest payment would be without interest, about 38 for the grader, and the highest payment without interest on the 7-year would be 24 for the truck, and then you have to add interest to that. But that's up to 7 years, and depending on what we can find for deals on interest.
Other questions?
Ann Redmond. Now, Dave, you say that you think it will save money to stick with our grader. I'm just wondering, has anybody done any study to see how much either way would save us?
Well, one more thing, and I forgot this point. When you saw the slide of the actual fiscal year 21 highway budget, we allocated as a line item for the first time ever $20,000 for grader repair or purchase. So it's not going to raise your taxes this year, and there's $20,000 of new money that got put into a line item. Well, we agreed to that on a vote, I remember. So
is that...
I remember going into that discussion. I mean, there was a lot of budget discussion on January 28th where we said, okay, and I got challenged on this, but don't you think we should buy a new grader or whatever? What if this one does break? And that was the answer. It's recorded in the minutes. I said, okay, that's a fair question. What if this does break and then it's not under warranty? And Ray just answered the question. Cavendish's grader broke and they had to have a transmission, and it does cost $15,000 or $20,000. We rented a grader, by the way, when ours was down for warranty work. So there are some options that get floated around when any unit breaks. So I hope
have there been any like estimates made as far as like how much it could possibly cost us?
It depends on the break. It depends on the breakdown. I mean, you have the service trucks come for a fee to get them here. They have to plug the computer in to see the diagnose what's the matter. They either, 9 times out of 10 it's like one of our cars where it has to go to a garage. That's the answer.
One of the other possibilities, when they talked about the $20,000, that wasn't to be funded with tax dollars. They were trying to, it was going to be deficit spending to pay for that and then use the fund balance to cover it. The other thing was adding money to reserves to offset the depreciation. So if you did put $20,000 a year for maintenance and you put $33,000 in reserves, you add those two together, it's more than a payment for the grader. But the reserves can be used for other equipment. So it's a choice. It's how to, if you want to pay a consistent amount now, or do you want to pay a lot more, borrow a lot more later to buy that machine? It feels good now not to have that payment, but in the future you will be making up the difference in tax dollars. So it's philosophical at that point.
Peter, John?
Back in 2014, when we started to get on, when the attempt was made to get on a program where we kept the grader under warranty, the math was done, and at that time, it basically was going to cost $30,000 and change to own a grader, period. No matter how you did it, whether you kept it till it was a piece of junk or if you kept rotating it through on a regular basis. If we want our roads graded, it's going to cost about that much. If we keep it, we're not going to save money, but we are, let me rephrase that. We may not actually save money, but we'll have a unit that's hopefully dependable, under warranty, and because of the depreciation number that Ray just said. And another component of that is when most of the large manufacturers of this kind of equipment offer what they call a municipal discount. The longer you keep it, that number goes away quite quickly, as we saw from the value of that unit from when we wanted to replace it to this year. I don't know the exact number, but it's a significant amount. We buy a piece of equipment like that a lot cheaper than a private company can. So the companies that take them back in and trade can continue to make money on a turned-in unit because all of a sudden they don't offer that discount anymore. Hope that's helpful.
And with the warranty as protection, you know exactly what it is you're paying for the grader. Without that, you might say, we're going to take $15,000 a year, raise that in taxes. If it covers it, fine. If it doesn't cover it, we spend a little bit more. You don't know, it's random. But you have to raise that tax dollar. So every year you're raising that much money, whether you use it or not. And at the end of the year, in your fund balance, you got to figure out what to do. This way, you know what your costs, you're controlling your cost. So that's why when I did the research, I've been in both venues. I know how the private contractors charge, and it seemed ridiculous to do it this way to me. But the more research I've done, I've converted, and I understand the numbers.
Other questions? Any other questions on the article? Okay, hearing none.
Peter?
Oh, sorry, one more.
Oh, we just love that these things get hooked in here like that. I'm not gonna take a personal position on this, whether it's a do or don't thing. I'm just gonna share with you. You saw me go over and talk to Ray. I went over and asked him what our annual hours are. And it's approximately 1,000 hours a year that we run the machine. The $240,000 spread over 7 years, not including interest, is roughly, comes down to about $35 an hour. It's $34,000 a year divided by the hours. 980 hours would be about $35 an hour to run this machine. Again, that does not include any non-maintenance items. If it's under warranty, things that break get fixed, but you've got tires, blades, there's certain things that are not warranty items. Just like your car, your brakes are not under warranty on your car. When they wear out, you're gonna pay to fix them. That's the way it is. But $35 an hour, I don't know. Just wanted to share those numbers with you.
There's another number that kind of popped out to me. We had a 2,500 hour service done on the machine in December. They went right through it before the warranty was up, made sure everything was good. They did a 2,500 hour service. That service was a $5,700 expense, $5,600 and change for an oil change, basically. They changed all fluids. A loader is probably around $700 or $800. There is options when you do the bidding to ask for those service contracts to be included. As long as we stay under that amount of money, that might be an option to have all those services paid for as well. We don't know until we get the bids.
Okay, any further questions? If there's no further questions on Article 10, we'll move on to Article 11. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve $33,000 to be placed in the Highway Equipment Acquisition Fund for future highway equipment purchases? Dave, did you want to speak to that one?
Darlene, do you have the total, what might be in the reserve account for this? I don't know if we asked that, but I know some of it's going to be taken out if the voters vote yes on the dump truck. This is a revolving fund that is set aside for future purchases of anything to do with the highway for motors. It's not tools or anything like that. It's not an annual expense. It's set aside to purchase machines.
At the end of fiscal year 19, there was $95,132.
Did everybody hear that's about 95, just under 100,000?
Page 90 in the town report. Actually, we added to that the $40,000 that we sold the dump truck for at the beginning of this fiscal year, so that has another 40 in it that's not in this audited number because it happened this year.
That's coming back out also.
Yes, if the dump truck passes, yes.
Correct.
Any other questions on Article 11? If not, we'll move on to Article 12. Shall the voters of the town of Weathersfield approve $30,000 to be placed in the Motorized Fire Apparatus Acquisition Fund for future motorized fire apparatus purchases? Brandon, I think?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment on this. The purpose of this article is to put money into reserves to purchase a new fire truck. And as you know, the town contracts two separate nonprofit fire departments at the moment. And but we are involved quite a bit financially in these departments. The town currently pays for the fire trucks. Forest Gutney Fire Trucks and Scottney has demonstrated a need for a new fire truck. The fire department contracts are up this year, and discussions with both fire departments will take place. However, this money is being set aside to keep things status quo.
Any questions on the article? Rhonda? Come on down.
Yes, I had a question, and it pertained to this because I know last year with the whole fire department debacle, it was discovered by a lot of people in town because we have purchased a lot of this equipment that we have no say over the equipment, we don't own it, we don't anything. The only thing I would like to ask is that if we're setting aside money to purchase this equipment, that if any new equipment is purchased by the town, that the town retains the ownership of this equipment. So in the future, if there is an issue between if they're going to centralize a fire department or anything else, the town will now own that equipment and we don't have to lease it or rent it back from anyone else. Thank you.
We own 4 Class A pumpers. We own a mini pumper that sits over in West Weathersfield. Scutney owns a ladder truck, and West Weathersfield owns a brush truck. And, excuse me, Scutney also owns a brush truck.
Right, but it was my understanding that the town does not own that. The fire associations own those.
We own 4 Class A pumpers. Those are the big ticket items.
When he says we, it's the town.
The town.
owns.
Okay, sorry,
Excuse
because
me.
last year with everything that was going on,
It got
it
confusing.
seemed to me like West Weathersfield was owned by West Weathersfield's
No.
Fire Association, and the Scutneys was owned by a Scutneys Association, and I just wanted to make sure that it was indeed, if the taxpayers are paying for it, that we are the ones that own that.
I just want to also clarify, there are pieces, there's a segment of that when John says the town owns. So the town purchased the apparatus and then there were additions that were put on the trucks, which is an option that the departments can do. So the departments own, they invested
Right,
that
like
piece of it.
hoses
Yeah.
or,
Well,
yeah.
and there were components
Or more.
on the actual apparatus that were added on. But when John says the town owns the apparatus, I just want to make clear that there is a portion that is owned by the organizations if they've opted to add those things onto the purchase.
okay, maybe that's where my misunderstanding came from. But last year I was like in shock going, we've all paid out all this money and we don't own them.
Yeah, what this
And I don't think-
article is to take a chunk of money.
Yeah, I
and
know
to
what
keep
the article
putting
is,
it in
I
there.
just wanted to make sure that if the whole the whole issue from last year ever happens again, it's not an issue of we have to lease equipment from anyone, we already own that equipment.
Yep. And the ladder truck that John referred to, Scutney owns their own ladder truck. They're in conversations about replacing one, but that's not what this $30,000 is to go into. This 30 is to go into that fund, should another another
To be
apparatus.
purchased by
a
the town.
Scutney. Yes, yep.
By the town.
No, a Scutney's ladder truck was purchased solely by a Scutney.
No, but I meant this article is
Yes.
purchased by the town.
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, further questions on the fire equipment apparatus? Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to, Brandon, I believe you have one last slide to talk about the impact of the tax rates. Just a conclusion.
Yes, I just wanted to be completely transparent. If the 2 reserve articles pass, the tax rate will increase. It's a very minor increase, but I still wanted to bring it to your attention, and that increase is 0.0052. That's all I have.
Okay.
That slide is for if everything listed passes.
Yes, but let me be clear with that. That does not include the dump truck or the grader, as that will be on next year's budget.
Yeah, an affirmative vote on those two articles does not affect this year's budget. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that article, we'll move back to Article 4, which is to transact any other business deemed proper when met. Is there any other announcements or issues that anyone wants to discuss?
Before the school, when the school meeting ended, I asked the question if anybody knew what the next year will meet on February 29th. There's probably nobody took the time. 2048.
No, February 29th, not March. Did you say March?
This is a historic occasion.
February. I want everybody to remember that to support the library, the town challenge is going to be, March 14th? Here at the school at 7 o'clock. It's a fundraiser for the library. There's a bunch of teams set up. My best friend, Ginger Wimberg, runs the show. Look at her shaking her head. Her face is red. Perfect. I did my job. What's that? It is a lot of fun, and it's for bragging rights on who knows the most answers, and you throw dice up in the air and it comes down, and people get to use their best education to know the answer. So March 14th, Saturday, it's in a couple of weeks, 7 o'clock here. Thank you.
Any other announcements or questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. So moved. Move to adjourn, and do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by BJ. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.